open the cart, close the cart, open the cart, X, open the cart, continue shopping. To get us started, I will go to Resources.js Components and create a new Vue component called Cart Button. Then I will copy and paste this basic example of a dialog component. The example is pretty straightforward. The dialog is controlled using an open prop, where we pass in an isOpen reactive object that is controlled using this setIsOpen method. Then we have a dialog overlay component used to inform the dialog when we click outside the content so it can close itself, and the dialog title and description used to label and describe the dialog contents. So this is the beauty of Headless UI. All the functionality is in place. All we need to do is style the components. Let's import and use this cart button component on our welcome page. So I'll go to JS, Pages, Welcome, remove all this. Remove the styles, the props, and let's import the component. Import cart button, and then components, cart button. Now if I go in the browser, we see the dialog appearing. If I click on its contents, nothing happens, but if I click outside, the dialog gets closed. The way we need to style this slide over is have a dark transparent overlay that fades in and out, and then have the contents slide in and back from the right. Let's close the sidebar and start styling the dialog container. This should be fixed, and then inset 0, and this will set the left, right, top, and bottom properties to 0, and then overflow hidden, and then Z10 to make sure the dialog stays on top of any other elements in the page. Moving on to the overlay, we can do something like this. Absolute, inset 0, BG black, and BG opacity 40 to make it transparent. Then let's wrap the dialog contents inside the div. And this will have BG white, fixed, inset Y0, and this will set the top and bottom properties to 0, and then right 0 to position it to the right, and then make it full width, but with a maximum of SM, which is somewhere around 400 pixels. Let's save, and here it is. Now that we have the styling in place, it's time to move on to the animations. We want to animate the overlay's opacity so it will be like a fade in, fade out kind of thing, and then I want the content to be sliding in from the right. To coordinate these two transitions, we can use the transition root and transition child components. So we'll wrap the whole thing within transition root. And this component accepts a show prop that controls the visibility of its children, and we'll set it to isOpen. And then here we can have as many transition child components as we need. In our case, we'll need one for the overlay and one for the dialog contents. By default, the transition root and transition child components are rendered as div elements, but since we don't need these, we can provide an as prop and set it to template. This way the elements will be rendered directly. Now, this transition child component, similar to a regular Vue transition, has a set of lifecycle props. We have enter, and these are the classes applied during the whole entering phase. Usually here you define what properties you want to transition and the duration. So for the overlay, I want to transition the opacity. And for the duration, let's say 300 milliseconds. Then we have enter from, and this is the starting point of our transition. So opacity 0. We'll start from opacity 0. Then we have enter 2, and this is where we want to end up, which is opacity 100. And this covers the whole entering phase. For leaving, we have leave, and here we'll have the classes applied during the whole leaving phase. We'll have transition, opacity, duration 300. Then we have leave from, and this is our starting point, which is opacity 100, and leave to, which is our ending point, opacity 0. So when we are opening the slide over, we trigger the entering phase, which will transition the opacity for a duration of 300. We'll start from 0, and then we'll reach opacity 100. When we close the slide over, we trigger the leaving phase, where we transition the opacity for a duration of 300, but in reverse, we start from 100 and end up with 0. Let's import the transition root and transition child components and see how this works out. So we'll do transition root, transition child, then copy these and register them here. And now if I click on the overlay, it fades out smoothly. But when I refresh the page, the overlay pops up without animating. To animate on the initial render, we need to add the appear prop to our transition root component. Refresh, and here it is. Let's move on to the slide over content animation. We'll have enter, and this will be transform to enable transformations, transition, transform, duration 300. Now for our starting point, enter from, we'll have translate x full. And this will hide the container by moving it to the right hand side of the screen outside of our view. And then we have enter 2, which is where we want to end up, and this will be translate x0. This will bring the container back into the view. For the leaving phase, we'll have transform, transition, transform, duration 300. And then as a starting point, we'll have translate x0, and as an ending point, we'll have translate x full. So for the content transition, we transform it for a duration of 300 milliseconds, moving it from outside the view into the view, and then on the leaving phase, we do the same thing but in reverse. We move it from inside the view to the right hand side of the screen outside of the view. Let's test it out. And here it is. To make it run more smoothly, we can add the isIn_out class. This will make the animation start slow, speed up in the middle, and then finish slowly. So let's do isIn_out. And the same for the leave transition. And let's also add it for the overlay transition. Refresh, and here it is. It's a bit more smooth. Now that we have the transitions in place, let's add a button that will trigger the slide over. We'll do button, and then class p4 to give it some padding, bg black, hover bg gray 800. And to place it on the bottom right side of the screen, we can do fixed bottom 6 to give it some margin, right 6. Let's add the click event handler. So click set is opened to true. And then let's replace this card with an icon from Hero Icons, which is made by the Tailwind team. Card, and let's grab this one, place it in. And let's say height 10, width 10, and text white. Refresh the page, and looks a bit weird. Let's round it up. So we'll do rounded full. And here it is. Looks nice, but it would be even nicer to have a badge showing the number of items in the cart. So let's do span. Let's say 1, And then here we'll have class absolute, top 0, left 0, and then some negative margin like -M1. And for the width, let's say 6, height 6, text XS, font bold, leading none, rounded full, and then BG red 600. Let's save. And to center the text, we can do inline, flex, justify center, items center, and text white. And there it is. Moving on to the cart content, let's style the title and add an X button to the top right side. We'll wrap the title in a div, and here we'll have the button. For the container, we'll do flex, justify between to push the items to the sides, items center to center them. Let's give it some padding and some shadow. Let's save. And now let's replace the X button with an icon. This one looks good. Let's style it a bit. We'll do P1, rounded full, focus outline none, focus ring 2, focus, let's say ring offset 2, and focus ring black. And let's see how it looks. Nice. And on click, we'll set is open to false. Let's test it out. And here it is. But as you might have noticed, the close button is focused. The reason for that is by default, the dialog component focuses on the first focusable element. To override that, we can set an initial focus prop on the dialog component that specifies a reference to the button we want to focus. So we'll do initial focus, and let's say checkout button ref. And we'll need to set this up. So we'll do ref, checkout button ref, and let's say checkout. And now here we need to do let checkout button ref equals ref null, and then return it here. And now if we refresh, you'll see that the button that is focused is the checkout button. Let's change the slide over title. So we'll do cart summary, and then style it a bit. Looks nice. Now for the content, what I want to have is a list of cart items, and then the cart total, checkout button, and continue shopping. The complicated part is that I want the cart total, checkout button, and continue shopping button to be pushed down, and then the remaining space to be used to display a scrollable list of cart items. So let's start. We'll make this container into a flex column, and then to make this occupy all the available space, we'll do flex 1. Let's also remove these, grab the buttons. Okay, now let's add a BG red 100. Okay, so now this occupies the entire space. The next step would be to turn this into a flex as well. So we can push the cart total and the buttons down. And we can do that by setting flex 1 on this one. And here it is. Now here we could do class py6 to have some padding, px4, bg gray 50. And then we could have subtotal, let's say $320, and some information text. Let's style this. We'll do class text XL, text center, font semi-bold. We'll do the same for the price. And for the information text, we'll do text center, empty 4, text gray 600. Okay, moving on to the buttons, let's wrap them. And here we'll say flex call space y2 empty 4. Okay. Now to style the buttons, we could do class bg black p3 to give it some padding, text white, rounded full, hover, bg gray 800, focus, outline none, focus ring 2, focus ring offset 2, and then focus ring black. And that's our checkout button. Looks nice. Now for the cancel, which would be continue shopping, we can do class p3 to give it some padding, bg white, text gray 500, hover, text black, rounded full, and the same focus styles. So let's grab them from here. Save. Looks nice. Okay, let's move to the cart items. Here we'll have an absolute div, and we'll need to add inset 0 to make it cover its entire container. And let's also add bg blue to see it on the screen. And to prevent it from spilling out, we can add relative to its parent. And here it is. Now inside this absolute div, we'll have the list of cart items. We'll do div flex call, divide y to add a border between them, divide gray 50. And then here, an individual cart item would look something like div flex p4 space x4, and we'll have two containers, one for the image and the button, and another one for the product name and price. Here we'll have image and button, and here we'll have some product title, and for the pricing, let's say 10 x 30 equals 300. Now to style these, we could do class flex call with 24, and then let's add a margin for the image, so MB 0.5, and for the button we'll do class px3 to give it some padding, py2, text XS, font semi-bold, tracking wider, uppercase, and then text center, rounded, cursor pointer, focus ring 1, focus ring black. Save it, and here it is. Now for the title, we could do class text XL, font semi-bold, leading tight. And for the price, we can do empty2 to give it some margin, text gray 800, leading normal. Looks nice. Now to make it so that we have a lot of cart items, we could do v4 item index in a new array, and here we can give it a number of items, let's say 100, and then key index. And now if we refresh, here it is. To make the list scrollable, we need to add overflow y scroll. And there it is. Let's remove the blue background and the red background. And I wonder why this isn't working. Divide. Refresh. And let's say 100. And there you have it. We can scroll through the items, close the cart, open the cart, and let's set the default value to false, so it's closed. Open the cart, close the cart, open the cart, X, open the cart, continue shopping. And that was it. That's how you can build a slide over dialog using HeadlessUI and VueJS. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it, subscribe, click the bell button, all that good stuff. Code snippets are in the description. Bye!